Fear not, denizens, Parade is here, aka the bringer of rain, aka father of the sea and sun, aka king of the core. Welcome, fair viewers, to the Core Creators Podcast, where I interview content creators and pick their brains about their creativity, their process, and we get together to join me and learn more about themselves. And I want to introduce my very special guest, lightsaber practitioner, Burgundy 20 of Burgundy Squad, in my opinion, the Peter Parker of the Galactic Star Wars universe. humble Doug from Holoscan Database. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. This is really cool. I freaking love your intros. Are the most clutch. They're just so much energy, and I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. We got to bring the energy up. We're doing a little after dark, podcast here. Of course, everyone's allowed to watch, but I'm glad you made the time to come on. My goal, I've been telling him, I'm trying to snipe all the Burgundy Squadron people to be on the show, because you guys are super creative, and I think everyone has an interesting story, and that's why I have you on here, because I'm gonna dig and find out where the photography came from, where the love of Star Wars came from. We're gonna have some fun. So I'm glad you're here on the show.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right, so let's start out there. I want to know how you, and if you guys haven't seen on Instagram, you got to see Doug's photos. They're amazing. Where does photography start for you?
It's weird. So photography for me, it really goes back to movies, which is funny. Okay. Like, a lot of people would be like, I'm just a strict photographer.
Yeah.
I grew up from a big movie family. Like, my mom, we joke around, we say movie lines constantly. We know movies like the back of our hand. So that was a big part of growing up, like movies, cinema. I just nerded out on so many just different sci-fi movies and just literature and stuff like that. So for me, I have a good amount of family that are artists. They paint or draw or whatever. They had some sort of ability. For me, I can doodle, okay. But I'm not much of an artist.
Yeah.
And then I definitely fell into the idea that once I was able to hold a camera, even as a kid, like, I would grab somebody's camera, like an uncle or somebody that had a camcorder, and we loved just hanging out with my cousins and filming and just making stupid little movies and stuff like that. So that translated to photography eventually, because when I went to college, I always had an eye for it, in a sense. I'm not the best photographer at all. Like, I will be the first person to say it, that on the technical level, there's some people that are amazingly talented and knowledgeable.
Yeah.
All I can give myself is that I love storytelling and I love cinema, and I know in my own head that looks right. That's it. If that makes sense.
No, it does. I think that comes across in your photos, because when I see them, I'm like, it's not just like, oh, hey, like, stand and look cool or do this pose. There's like actual intention with the shots that you have, especially like with the Mandos and when you did like the Rodians and the Cantina. Those impacted me, man. They're stuck in my brain.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's super cool. And I think it's nice when you do something like that, especially when you're just getting started. I mean, Holoscan is barely a year old. Like, if that. I barely started. Yeah. And that was just street photography or just random other photography I liked doing. But I never even thought like crossing a fandom with something I love and photography would be a thing. And I just tried it, and immediately people gravitated to like, this is freaking rad. Like, I want more of this.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I think it's a great idea. Do you remember how, was it just like, oh, hey, I in the shower thought of this and it's a cool thing, or was there more of like something that sparked?
So for me, like I said, since college, I took some photography classes. It kind of became a little more official. I would just do stuff, but nothing in a professional manner.
Okay.
And then one day every so often I had worked on like short films or things like that, because I have done a handful of things of my own projects that I put my own money into. I'm like, you know what, let's go shoot a short film. Let me write a script. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And it was always great, but there was always kind of an end. Right. I'd work on a project and that's it, and work on a project. And for this, I started realizing that, okay, one, I fell in love with costuming and bounding, even though in the beginning I sucked. Like, my costumes are trash.
Everybody does, I think.
I know, we're all rough in the beginning. And I think one day I just had this idea that I'm like, okay, filming is a lot of work. Mm-hmm. Doing a short film is a lot of work. Moving parts, getting people together, all these things. Editing. And I realized that, what if I created a platform where I could tell stories constantly about different people in a certain world, and continue to do that in a faster capacity? Because photography, in my opinion, the turnaround's faster.
Right, yeah.
I can edit and do this and move on and do this. And so constantly, whenever I work with somebody, I'm basically writing a short film in my own head. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is your story. Like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then showing that and translating that story through photos as a collection.
Yeah.
So with that being said, that's why when I finally fell into OCs, I was super blessed to, quite literally by chance, meeting Burgundy Squadron, meeting Billy, Kate, One Scavenger Wardrobe. Yeah. I met her on Batu last May 4th.
Yeah.
And it was right after I met Mars from Corner of Coruscant.
Yep.
He was actually my first shoot.
Yeah, I ever remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a random event that I had been getting into bounding, and I started going to Disneyland, and I was at Batu. And when I was there, in my own head, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta do something. I gotta tell a story. I want to tell a story about this random character that no one would suspect. And through chance, I was on Instagram, because I was following everything bounding related at that point. And one day I'm scrolling through and I see Mars. And I was like, who is this? This is so cool.
Yeah.
First droidsmith I had ever seen. Mm-hmm. And like, this guy looks like he belongs, but I don't know what he is, and I don't know who he is. And thankfully, I just by chance, I DM'd him. I'm like, hey man, I'm a photographer. I'm literally just doing this out of fun. I didn't even have Holoscan back then.
Right.
When I first shoot. And I reached out to Mars, and thinking I was going to get no response. And he DM'd me, was like, absolutely, let's do this. Let's do something.
Yeah.
And it was so fun to do. And I was able to tell a story that I loved, but also see, what I didn't expect is that people were noticing it, and people were like appreciating the care and planning it took.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because, like I said, I think there's a lot of intent behind your pictures.
Thank you.
It's not just like, oh, hey, this wall looks cool, let's stand here. Like, this spot is a good spot to take a picture. Like, you're conveying something, because I mean it's subjective, right? You're actually really conveying that there's intent and storytelling there behind it, and I think that's what makes your photos different, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Which I think is rad, and I'm super jealous because you're meeting like all of Burgundy Squadron. I'm just behind the screen. I'm like, yeah, I see their photos.
There's like a legit running joke now that they're like, because my OC, for people that don't know, his name's D-ISO. He's a holoscanner. He's basically a Star Wars version of a photographer that I created. And there's a running joke that it's like, why is D always in trouble? Or why is he always in the midst of chaos? Because I'm meeting everybody during these stories.
Yeah.
So it's funny. Yeah. But it's cool. I have met a good amount of them, and I'm going to continue to see them. I'm sure finally one day when you come down to around LA, dude, definitely we'll get together.
Yeah, we talked about it. I think before it was like Holoscans too. You're like, "Hey, I'm doing this
Yeah,
thing," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll be down." And it was, I was like, "I don't know, maybe so." We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out because I'm
yeah,
gonna make my way.
yeah.
I'm getting that because it's like Season of the Force at Disneyland, and people are just posting like what's going on there. I'm like, I'm really feeling the tug.
Galactic FOMO.
And I
I
actually,
know.
my Star Wars night, I was with my friends who are big Disneyland people, and they wanted to
Okay.
do the rides, and they're running across the park. And this was after Star Wars convention. I was so dead, and I didn't really have like the greatest time. But now I know I won't do a convention and Star Wars night in the same run. I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's like your social battery was like demolished.
It was my
That's a lot.
physical. It was my physical.
Yeah,
My legs, dude.
yeah.
And I think we like started the night off with Indiana Jones, and boy, oh boy, does that ride. I felt like Sam Jackson in Unbreakable. I'm just like hitting all the sides of the walls.
You're like you straight up went Mr. Glass on everything.
Yeah, Mr. Glass. It was bad.
Oh,
It was, that's a story for another time. But where does your love of Star Wars start?
oh, it's funny. I had never thought about it for a long time until as of recently, being with Burgundy and stuff like
Yeah,
that. And
yeah.
a lot of us, we touch base and talk and like nerd out about stuff. And I really stopped to think. I'm like, why Star Wars? Like, a friend of mine once said it really well. She was basically saying that like, when you grow up, you're either the wands and wizards kid, or you're the blasters and spaceships kid. Like, not that you can't bleed into both. You
Yeah,
can,
yeah,
because
yeah.
like, all like different things. But I'm very much the blasters and spaceship kid. Like that was what interested me. Like sci-fi, like Blade Runner,
Yeah.
Dune. Anything you can give me with a moody feel and some sci-fi, I'm in, dude. So I think that's kind of what was a big part of my childhood, and I've always gravitated toward. Thankfully, for if I could look like farthest memories was it was essentially my aunt at the time, but it was more like aunt through friends, my mom. Her oldest son had the old VHS box set,
Yeah. Yeah.
the trilogy. Remember the old one? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They're like, it
And
was in a 3-pack, and
yep.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I remember being a really little kid, and they put it on. We watch it, and I remember specifically Return of the Jedi was burned in my brain.
yeah.
Even the scene where they're approaching Jabba's palace, in the like where you do see R2 and 3PO
Yeah,
like
yeah,
going
yeah.
up. And I remember the little oh my god, the little eye that popped out.
Doria.
Freaked me out. Like it terrified me. I hated that scene. And as an adult now, I'm like, why did that scare me? It's just like a robotic eye. I don't know, whatever. So that movie really did a number on me. Like I really fell in love with it, and I think it was just the storytelling, that it wasn't just like, lightsabers and stuff are rad.
Right.
We love them. We all do. But I think what they did so well with that story is the fact that it really was a very deep-seated story, very deep story of, Luke growing up and what he became and his relationship with his father and all these things. Like, I think that's what makes Star Wars different.
Yeah.
And not, at least in my, I think that's what kind of keeps people coming back, because we all get like really caught up with like, building stuff. We freaking love it, right? But I really think it's why we gravitate towards it, because it all means much more to us than just the flair.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, totally. Because I mean, a lot of movies these days, you have your summer blockbusters. You think of Michael Bay and explosions and car chases, and it actually lacks a lot of narrative or even fleshing characters out. Because that's what I gravitate to and I think Burgundy Squadron as a group, I think we all kind of gravitate towards storytelling and narrative. Like that kind of seems to be the running thing, especially if you're going to make an original character in OC. You're thinking about a background, and you're thinking about like the motivations and why, and even relating it to like D&D, it's like your character's on this adventure and there's a reason you're on this adventure. It's not just kind of like, for an explosion or just to be the hero or whatever. There's more, there's like a lot more deeper things to it. And I think Star Wars does bring that for sure. And I think that's why it's so like classic, because, that hero's journey, it's just, a great story. And even like a great twist. Like, even think about how, like, if you were sitting in the theater when Empire Strikes Back is like first revealed, your mind must have been blown. Yeah. It's insane. Because like even twists nowadays, we have, Sixth Sense, and like there's like those touchstones for twists in movies. Like we don't get them very often.
I think the last time we kind of had a glimpse of what people probably felt, initially, then when that reveal came out, was when we had like The Mandalorian, where we had Luke. Like that was it. That was our kind of our present day moment. Like I remember seeing, like I said, my wife, we're big Star Wars nerds. She's not a costumer. I'm more the costumer guy.
Yeah.
But we're very much just equally as into Star Wars. And we were watching that episode, and I remember like it was the funniest like turn of events that happened. We're sitting watching it, and it's getting to the end, right? The music's kind of starting up, and we're like, okay, it's getting kind of heavy. And then I remember the X-Wing flying.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh yeah. And then that happens, and we kind of like both look at each other, and I'm like, oh, it's the pilots. It's the pilots we saw earlier, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they found something.
It's New Republic. It's Gina Carano.
We all had this moment of like deny, because we didn't want to believe it. Because it was like, okay, X-Wing, all right. And then it was like, what was it? You see Grogu, and you see that little glint of the Force, and you're like, whoa, hold up, what's going on? And then you finally see the lightsaber, and you're like, green lightsaber, okay. And you see the hood, and then you see the hand, and you see like there's so many parts, but they still don't show his face. And I think there's a big part of us that didn't want to believe it because we were too excited.
Right.
Because I remember it was like, no, there's no way. And it was the best moment that we were just like super happy and emotional, and they did such a good job on that scene. It was so super cool.
The build up to that, I remember that too, because I was like, no. I was like, wait, what? And I was like, that could be, like, I was thinking, because there was theories at the time, like, who it could be, and, and I was like, no, there's no way. And I'm like, black cloak, glove, green lightsaber, the music, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Luke. And I'm a big Luke Skywalker fan. Like, that's my guy. And the Return of the Jedi Luke, the black outfit, Force choking Gamorreans, that's my guy. Like, I'm like, that's the Luke I want to see. And I got more of it. Oh my gosh, it was insane.
That's like Luke Skywalker in his heyday. Like, that's
prime.
He is, he's the best. You're just like, oh my god, this is. And I think that was cool about Return of the Jedi, is that even though you only really see Luke, you finally had an idea of what top tier Jedi was.
Right.
And you're like, he's kicking ass.
Yeah.
Like, he's
yeah, it's so great, dude. And that's why I really like Book of Boba Fett, because you get the Luke and Grogu training, and there's like so many touchstones with Ahsoka and Anakin, and I'm like, I'm a dad, so I'm watching this scene, and then like just something inside of me, I think like even like my childhood self getting to see more Luke, I'm like crying during the episode, and I had to pause it, and I'm like, why am I crying? And I'm just like, this is so great. And I'm watching, so I really like Book of Boba Fett because of that. I mean, it's cheating because you have like Luke just kind of being dropped in there, but the Luke stuff is amazing. And just to be able, even just like, I mean, the deep fake or the AI or the CG on it or whatever, it's whatever. We'll see if it ages well. I think they did better in Book of Boba Fett with it, but it's like they're trying to tell this story, and it is the right time period, so I can't be like that mad at it. Even watching I recently watched Rogue One, and I'm like looking at it more like Tarkin and Leia, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not horrible. It was jarring for me seeing it the first time, because ingrained in me is like, I have Tarkin's face ingrained in my brain.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, they could have just recasted, but it doesn't look that bad. And so, I give it a little grace.
I think for technology, I mean, granted, sometimes it's something to do.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes in terms of technology and storytelling, if you tell a good story, the technology will be forgiven.
Yeah.
In a sense, because I feel like, I mean, even though the original trilogy is so amazing, there's still, you look at it in retrospect, you're like, it's aged, it's
Sure.
changed, and I think there's a balance with that. So like, if you love the story already, I don't think everyone's going to care too much. Yeah, I could have, granted, things can look better.
Yeah.
And I think that's why for my work, I really, really, really try hard to not use. I'm a big practical effects guy. I love practical effects. I feel like they just work and they age well, like you were saying. The last shoot we did with the Mandos, that blaster was a lightsaber.
Nice.
And as you have light spill, it's really there. You have your subject that they can kind of react to what's there, and I feel definitely that's something that you can translate onto cinema and photography, that if you have it there, like the cantina, right? The original cantina, Mos Eisley, like those creatures were puppets. They were there.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so cool, that it's tangible.
Yeah. Because it's like about that immersion,
Yeah.
And to me, it still ages well, because you're like, it was there the whole time. It wasn't like, kind of placed in. And I think, in movies now and even in TV, they do such a good job with CG. Like, you can't tell anymore. But it does. I feel like there's that magic to it, especially with like the old Star Wars movies. It's a classic because of the practical and what they had, and with technology too. They still have to push those boundaries. Like, we need someone to do it for it to move forward, because we won't get what we're getting now if Star Wars doesn't do Star Wars, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, you're totally right about that. Yeah, I think if you meld them together, so many really good movies lately. Like, if you even look at like Interstellar, or other movies where you blend them, there's visual effects, and then you also have the practicality of like, we're gonna actually build this spaceship and rock everybody around in it, and we're gonna add this after, or this post, and then it's so beautiful that you can't tell. You're just like, wow, this is real. This is like, my brain thinks this is real.
Yeah. I think it's great, and I think eventually we'll see. I don't know if it's good or bad for the industry, but we'll see better face replacement, moving forward. It's just, we're just seeing the growing pains of it all right now. What's your? Now I'm curious. So you're a big movie guy. Top 5 movies.
Yeah.
Just give it to me.
Oh my God,
put so you hard. On the spot.
That's so hard.
Or five that come to mind that you really enjoy.
I think it's funny. Like, granted, I have like the cool factor ones. Like, like I said, Blade Runner is like near and dear.
The original,
Star Wars,
the original Blade Runner.
Yeah, the original. Oh, I also like the new one.
I like 2049 a lot. Yeah.
2049, and they even made like an anime that was a precursor. Oh. That was really good too. It was only a few episodes. It's really good. Yeah. So
shout out to Denis Villeneuve.
That's one of those that. Yeah. Oh man, beautiful, beautiful work. But movies wise, I would say those. I'm a big. Like my selection of movies is very like that. Like, not vast, but it's a variety.
Yeah.
There's a movie. It's called Cat on the Hot Tin Roof, and it was a Elizabeth Taylor movie.
Oh, okay.
And it's just about a family. It's about a family and their trouble, like just family stuff going on. and it's such a beautifully written movie that it has nothing to do with sci-fi. It's literally just about a family in the South, and it's so good. And I love that movie. And
I have my old movie too. Is My Love of Judy Garland. It was Meet Me in St. Louis. It's like 1940s or 1950s. Yeah. Great music. Cinema's awesome. Movies are awesome.
Yeah, it's rad. And then the movie Prisoners was great. I love that movie.
Jake
the visuals,
and
yeah. The cinematography, anything by that cinematographer, and I'm blanking on his name, but like he's kind of like my go-to cinematographer. That I'm like, yes, this makes sense. Whenever he does interviews, I'm like, yeah, less is more. Like, I'm that guy. So it's Roger Deakins.
Okay.
But yeah, his work is amazing. So
yeah, this is all an interview for when we do the Burgundy Squadron movie. That you're definitely going to be on the production team.
Oh no, too much pressure. It's, a few people have like joked with me. They're like, "Oh, you got it." I'm like, "Oh no, don't." Like,
I mean, and it's so crazy. Like, I mean, we're joking, right? But
yeah,
people don't think about how hard it is to make movies and how it takes like so much time off of your life to make these big budget. That's why JJ's like, I'll just do one. He's like, I'll do one movie. You guys handle the rest, and it's just like years. It's just like years.
Yeah, it's a lot, but I'm not saying I won't do it.
Yeah. I know you. We're making the calls.
But I laughed. I think they were talking about that one time. They're like, oh, if we did a movie, or I've had a few other people I've worked with too that now they're kind of hinting to the idea that they're like, if we worked on some sort of project, like, would you be interested? And right now I'm on the forum of like, am I going to go short-term media with Holoscan? Ever so often it might happen, because I feel like it leans towards it so well, because we're storytelling constantly.
Yeah.
But one time we were joking in the chat, and they're like, oh yeah, we should do this and that. And I'm like, do you know how bad it would be if you gave me a budget? That's dangerous. Don't give me a budget. I'm doing this stuff like with no budget.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, we're building the Star Destroyer. I'm like, don't do this. So.
I know, man. It gets dangerous. Too many creative minds. Burgundy Squad could get real dangerous real quick.
And that's one thing about the Star Wars community is I have to thank the community in a whole that it has been like so much insane love that like it's just been positive vibes this whole time, and it's nuts. I'm like, how? What? Why? And people are just like, we love it. Keep doing it. Like, oh my god, like so rad. And for a creative person, you're just like, this is dangerous. You're just giving me more fuel. But it's really cool. And I think it's really beautiful to see that, specifically for our group, but also just I even see for people out of our group, that in general, the majority, not saying all, but the majority are just friends wanting to see their friends have fun. And it's super cool to see. So it's like inspiring.
Yeah. I grew up with the burgeoning of like internet, right? And it's such a toxic place already. I think that's why, we're finding each other this way, because it's like, we don't have time. I'm too tired. I got kids, I got a job. Let's just have fun here with this little group and celebrate each other's success. Cause it's like, there's like not competition, right? Like there's anyone can take a picture. And if you're taking cool pictures, I'm going to repost that, like I genuinely, like when I like something, I'll repost it. When I'm hitting that like button and I'm commenting, I genuinely think it's like awesome. And I wish more people are more thoughtful about that kind of thing. But, but I think this group, like we were saying, we can't stop talking about how great Burgundy Squad is. And you guys are all welcome to join. You just got to come up with like a little costume and everything and just be willing to have some fun. But
absolutely. Yeah. It's really cool how like everybody is so welcoming, and like, excited to help each other. It's like, oh yeah, I'm building this armor. I have never painted anything in my life. Oh, okay, cool. Here's a tutorial. Like, it's nuts how everyone jumps on it and they're like, so yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Burgundy's like, Billy kind of put that in there that you're welcome, dude. Like, if you have a legitimate story, a legitimate character that fits in the umbrella of this group, jump in. Which is
it's a home. It's a home for the ones that don't have one, who want to just kind of mess around and play. I did want to ask, do you have like a cosplay background or anything with like Comic-Cons or conventions, or was Disney bounding kind of like the first thing you're like, oh, I'm gonna dress up for this?
So I did, but not like extreme. Like I wasn't like. I'm a big Batman fan. So I a few cons. I went to like LA Comic-Con a few times as Nightwing.
Oh, nice.
Like I did like a red, like the New 52 red one.
Yeah.
I had like red contacts on, looked pretty cool. I was like in full on kill mode. I did that. I did a few other things, I forget, but nothing extreme. Nothing like, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna get a suit, throw it on, whatever.
Yeah.
But I always enjoyed cosplayers, and I always thought they were really talented. Wow. And then not until I created this character and then met everybody that like we really the ante got upped, because being amongst so many creative people, you naturally kind of get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Especially like when Billy posts like his tutorials, I'm like, oh, that's how someone else is doing it. Or when like Kate is like, hey, I'm doing this, and asking for advice and stuff, and people are more than willing to share. I think it's cool that even just like, I know most of the group won't consider themselves cosplayers, but it all still bleeds over, and there's a lot of tips out there already. Because when I started going to conventions, no one was really using like foam to make stuff. There was like a handful of people, and then now everyone does it, and now it's 3D printing, and it's just crazy how, again, technology has helped the art out quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did want to ask, so I mentioned you twirl lightsabers, and you told me before you go
like so intermediate.
Yeah. I don't know what else to call it. I wanted to,
I don't even know.
Yeah. You go out there and you're explain what the thought process of doing it, because we're just joking around right here, but like what are you doing and why?
Oh, it's funny. Well, it's funny that you went it. That's how I know you're good at interviewing, because you're very thoughtful when you ask questions. Very thought out.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're getting like to the the show Hot Ones.
Yeah.
Like Sean, you're getting like there, bro.
I'll be there for Star Wars community. I'll be there for you.
Oh, that'd be great. Like bantha wings would be great.
Bantha burgers. This is the Mustafar sauce level 1.
Yeah. So yeah, for lightsaber, like I said, I'm super new to it.
Sure.
And I think what I really liked is thankfully, like, so my wife ended up getting me a lightsaber for our anniversary last year, and she was like, oh, I got your lightsaber, I knew you wanted one, and I got one from Imperial Workshop, which is freaking rad. But I got I'm super not flashy, so I got their low tier one.
Yeah.
I just wanted all the effects. And what I realized is, at first I was like, oh, cool, I just want a lightsaber. I just want to play around with it. And then little by little, I would, like late at night, I'd be like, oh, okay, downtime. And not to get into the details, but I have my 9 to 5. It's pretty stressful. I have a pretty high intense job, and hence why Holoscan is kind of a good decompression for me, and it's a creative outlet for me. And what I realized is that I would go outside and nobody's outside on my street. So I would just put my headphones in and listen to music, and I would just practice wielding, we'll call it.
Yeah, that's a better word for it.
And it's so fun, and I can see why people get into it, because it's really like you could really zone out.
Yeah. And
it's kind of therapeutic.
Yeah,
yeah. Sounds silly, but you're like, yeah, this is really fun.
Nice.
So,
What's your playlist consist of?
oh man, I have very eclectic taste. Like most of my taste is very oh shoot. I grew up on, I think, what would you call it? It's like electronic, I guess you would call it. Have you heard of the band Crystal Castles?
Not that I can recall.
Okay, so Crystal Castles. Let me look at my, hold on. Let me look at my playlist.
No problem. I'm putting you on the spot by asking you
Okay.
these questions. Like, what do you listen to? What do you listen to?
No, you're good. Okay, there's Crystal Castles. There's an artist called Web, W-E-B.
Okay.
Vestron Vulture. I'm sorry, Vestron Vulture is a good band. Anything, a DJ, his name is Vaj. It's V-O-J.
Okay.
A group called Sidewalks and Skeletons. Yeah, a bunch of random. I even listened to this word. I don't know if it's German, but it's like they're called Chernobylberg. It's I don't know, but I like the music.
Yeah.
I said I have very weird.
Yeah, we'll look up those in the next time. I'll check those out. Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Is it like EDM or what is it like?
I guess yeah, you can kind of equate it to EDM.
Okay.
I think it's just like more like I would say it's more electronic
Just
music than it is
Okay.
EDM.
Okay.
Like it's not really party music. It's more
Got
just
it.
like very weird stuff. I don't know. Yeah.
That's cool. And how many lightsabers do you own?
One.
Just the one? Nice.
I literally have one. And we made a joke one time that like in the crafting community, everybody has 1,000 of each, right? There's like you and Billy were joking about blasters.
Yeah.
There's like a ton of blasters or helmets.
Yeah.
I really, really, really rarely have more than one thing.
That's
and
awesome.
I think it's because I'm naturally very minimal. But I rather, like, for instance, mine was super, it was like low, like the baseline. It did all the effects I wanted and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got it for that sole purpose. And I modded it, the hilt, and then I painted it. And then in my head, that's mine. Like,
yeah.
It doesn't, like, no one else has that saber.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I tend to do that. Like right now, in the next few months, I'm building out my first Mando. And it's an OC Mando, and it's, I really legitimately believe it might be the only Mando I ever have in my life. But it's just like the one. It's like, okay, that's mine. Cool.
Yeah.
Done. So, yeah.
I love that, dude. I definitely have more than one lightsaber. But the one I got from Savvy's actually is like my custom one because I ended up buying extra parts, like duplicate parts for it. So if
like
you did
Etsy?
maybe even eBay, but like I bought a duplicate part so that if someone else tried to, and it's more than likely someone else going to build the same one. Sure. However, I have an extra part that you couldn't get a duplicate of unless you bought multiple. And then I even painted some of the accessories, so color-wise it would even look a little bit different. Or some of the parts.
I remember when you posted the like what was it? The Star Wars Visions, the samurai style lightsaber.
Yeah.
Dude, that's clutch.
Dude,
that was so pretty.
Yeah, it's just back there against my wall.
Yeah.
I told my daughter, I said, if anyone comes in, Daddy gets to use that.
Yep.
Like, please join me. Just come on in, and you'll just see a red lightsaber just ignite in the corner.
You just need to get her like a tiny dagger one.
Her lightsaber that she's claiming is I have it's like the Disney Ezra Bridger one, which I really love.
Oh, okay.
And it's
that's cool.
I like that design so much because it was so different at the time than anything else we saw. And it could look kind of cheesy or whatever, but I think it says a lot about his character, which I really enjoy about lightsabers in general.
That's the one that's like it's kind of like a dual blaster, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that one's cool. I've seen it at the park. It's really cool.
Yeah.
We did a handful of them, but they're like the kid version.
Sure.
We have we have a bunch of those. We have like 2 or 3 that my daughters play with.
Yeah.
We have like official lightsabers. Like I'm the only one that has one. So.
Yeah. The Visions one And it's funny because I bought 2 Vision lightsabers. I have the one from the episode with the rabbit girl, because I thought when I watched that episode, I was like, that lightsaber is so cool looking. I said, if anyone ever made it, I'll buy it. And they made it, and I have that, and I was like, this is awesome. But I was like, if I ever do a cosplay, I would love to do the Ronin, and eventually that same company, the Pak store, I think they're in the Philippines. They did the Ronin style lightsaber. I'm like, no brainer.
I remember that episode kind of vaguely, but I remember remembering how awesome, like, the intention of the way she moved the lightsaber was.
Yeah.
And I think that stood out to me, that, like, the way she moved was very specific to that Jedi.
Yeah. And like, talking about Visions, like, there's a lot of storytelling going on, and there's episodes that people don't like, but I was telling Billy, I said, there's something to glean from each thing, you know, even though it's like not canon. There's always something to glean from, like, how they're telling stories, and I just loved it. I just love it. And I'm actually not even a big anime guy at all. So it's like, I just love Star Wars stuff. So I'm like, if I could get more Star Wars content, you know, I mean, it reminded me a lot of, do you remember the Cartoon Network Clone Wars? They had an animated show in the style of Samurai Jack. Do you remember that?
Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought this up. Okay, so I remember that. Was that not I always thought that was the first season of Clone Wars. Was it not?
It was not.
I'm wrong. I'm very wrong.
It was not the first season, but it was called Clone Wars.
Okay. And I remember that. Go ahead.
There were like 4-minute episodes between TV shows on Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
And then they eventually just put them all on disc, so then you could, like, kind of watch them in succession. And everyone was just super OP. They even had they took Grievous and put Grievous in, and Grievous was like awesome. And then when they were like, this isn't canon, and that was even before Disney, because it was like, I think it was like too cool for them, because they knew about what was coming in episode 3. And George was like, oh yeah, just, you know, have fun with it, like he did with, like, all of the books and stuff, like, oh yeah, and then they're like, well, this isn't canon, but it was called Clone Wars. Yeah. I
did love how they kind of explained why Grievous was kind of trash later.
Yeah.
Mace Windu just like crushed him.
Yeah, and that's why he has the cough. That's why they have the cough.
And I'm like, I like that. That makes sense.
Yeah, and it was cool because you even see Grievous, like, take out like 6 Jedi at one time. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. That's like some of my favorite Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, so I was always confused about that. I didn't realize. I was like, because my wife watched all of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And when we started watching it, I was like, this isn't right. Like, why is it animated? Like, it's not, it doesn't look the same. So, okay.
That's why, and you know what's funny is because me and my friends were such big fans of that cartoon, the Clone Wars movie came out to theaters. And I don't know if you know this. So there was a movie, a theatrical release of the Clone Wars, which is the animated Ahsoka and Anakin. Okay. And it was the episode where they're saving a little baby Hutt. There was like a little baby, and they were saving the baby. That was the movie, and we thought it was going to be based on the cartoon, the Samurai Jack.
Oh, so you guys were like...
So we were like, what are we watching? And so we were like really disappointed. And that was like after episode 3, because like in my last episode with Billy, I thought Star Wars was dead. So that coming back, I'm like, oh cool, we're gonna get more Star Wars stuff. And I was like, this is too childish for me at the time. And that was really disappointing. So I didn't actually watch Clone Wars. I didn't have cable television at the time either, but I didn't watch Clone Wars until years later. Like when my nephews were growing up, I would catch episodes here and there, kind of checking in. But what's also interesting, and this is for the audience too, if you watch Clone Wars now, the order's not correct. Yeah, timeline wise. So like episode 1, episode 2, episode 3 in the order of Clone Wars, like the way they aired it, is not in correct timeline order. So you would actually have to Google. If you're going to watch Clone Wars, you're going to Google the actual timeline, because they like finished some episodes, and so they would release those while some episodes were still in production, from what I understood.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. So like if you put on
That's
Clone Wars
interesting. I never
now,
thought
like
about
you'll be like in a Yoda battle, but that actually isn't the first episode. It's like episode 32 is like the first in the timeline of the story, which is weird. So if you watch it with the way people on the internet have said, like watch episode 32, watch episode 33, then watch 1, 2, 3, it makes more sense. And I was like, oh, this is way more enjoyable. I wish they just reordered it, but they haven't. So
Yeah. They probably just, as they wrote it, they kind of were like, let's figure it out.
yeah.
Like, oh, but I want to go back. I want to go for, yeah.
They're just like, the movies are all out of order. Let's just keep that. Let's just keep that going.
Let's be real. They were not planning it. They just were like, let's just make it. Don't worry about it.
So another movie and Star Wars related. So is Return of the Jedi your favorite Star Wars movie?
It's between let's put categories. For the original trilogy, Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Prequels, Revenge.
Yeah.
Definitely. The only movie that can make a grown man cry, in my opinion. And then even the sequels, I think it's the middle one. It's what is it?
Last Jedi.
What's it called?
Last Jedi.
Last Jedi. Yeah, and I think it's because it's like seeing Rey and Kylo, the back-to-back fight. I was like, this is the most clutch moment for me. But I think I enjoyed most of them. And then Rogue One is like, everybody loves Rogue One.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. That movie is great. One of my buddies, he's like just super, like he's like, oh my god, Rogue One. I'm like, chill, calm down. But no, yeah, I like most of them. I don't think I've ever seen any Star Wars that I really was like, I wish this wasn't here, because it just adds more stuff. It adds more story.
Yeah,
like the universe in Star Wars is so big.
Yeah,
and so grand. There's no way we can tell all the stories. And even with me, I'm now telling more stories. And I think that's why it works. That's why Star Wars works, is that everybody can find themselves or what they want to see in that world.
Yeah. I'm hoping somewhere in the near future we're going to get stories outside of the Skywalker saga or outside of that main storyline, because even like with Andor, they're telling a story. It's adjacent, right? You have Mon Mothma and everything, but I'm like, yeah, we can kind of push away from the main canon stuff and do like cool, interesting stories outside of here, because the universe is already like built out. So I'm hoping that they can take more risks there in Hollywood and decide to do that, because I think there's a market open still for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what's fun too, is that like when you tell stories, and it's funny, I just got in conversation the other day with somebody about, some photos and stuff. And it's not that it's intentional, but if you look at Holoscan, you don't see any canon characters. Like I kind of chose to do that as a creative thing, that everybody wants to be Luke, everybody wants to be Han, everybody wants to be Leia. I didn't want to show those stories anymore. We refer to them like in passing.
Yeah.
And I think that's more fun, is that you just build more stories. And like you're saying, you hope the media goes towards just fill in that world. Like I legit would just want, like, what was it, Mando, the fish lady, the frog lady.
Frog lady, yeah.
Frog lady was such a good story, and she had nothing to do with anybody.
Yeah.
She was just trying to get her babies back home to her husband, and that's it. That was like the best story of all time. But it's just Star Wars. There's a space for it, and it's kind of like, we got to just keep telling all those little stories.
Yeah,
they're more fun.
And that's why I like Visions a lot, even though it's not canon. It's within the universe, and people are allowed to tell stories. Because I was like, we got to keep supporting it. Because I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm like, we got to keep supporting this kind of thing, so that Disney goes, oh yeah, people like this, and we'll keep making stuff like that. Because it's all about audience and viewership and intention these days. So it's like we got to really, even though it might not be your favorite thing, it'll lead to something good, because I think
Yeah.
without like Rogue One, we wouldn't have Andor. You know, we have to like still support everything doing Star Wars to get more Star Wars, because if we stop watching, they'll stop making it.
Yeah.
I did want to ask before I forget, what's
Yeah.
your, and if you don't have an answer, that's fine too. What's the goal or the dream with Holoscans? Like, what's the big,
when I first,
what's the big picture? Yeah.
I don't think any of us have a plan. Like, what was it when Billy was talking about, like, for Burgundy?
Yeah.
It's like, what's the grand plan? And I'm like, I don't think we know what the hell we're doing. I think that's what we even joked the other day. It was like, oh, Burgundy Squadron is BS because we're all full of BS. But I think it mainly means that we're just figuring out as we go.
Sure.
But I think what Holoscan is turning into, and I think now that I have my foot like into what it's gonna be, is I'm happy that it's not like, even though it's my work and I'm able to tell these stories and continue to do these for people that come to me and want to do that. It's really becoming a platform of somewhere you can tell your story and you really feel that you belong in that universe. And I think for me, I was making something that I thought was cool, which is always the best reason to make anything.
Right.
But the fact that people that were responding to my photos were like, that looks like a screenshot from a film. Like, to me, like, dude, that was like the highest of praise. I was like, dude, wow, thank you. Appreciate that. But I think that's what it is that I want it to be something that people will come back and do that, because I want them to continue, hey, this is what's going on with my character now. I want to tell this story. Now I want to tell a different character, or whatever it is. Like, I just want it to be a platform for people to know that all of their creativity, or of how much they put into their characters, that is very themselves, that they put into these characters, is appreciated, and that I care about these characters. And I think it's very easy, especially like a lot of the community that I've come across is like people that are associated with Bounding or the Star Cruiser when I was there. And they love doing this, and this is so much a part of who they are. And I love the fact that people are appreciating that. Like, no, it's not like you're just dressing up and being silly. No, like, you're cool.
Right, yeah.
Like this is rad. This is super cool. So the response I've gotten from people is that they appreciate that you're giving them the dignity and respect to say, no, this isn't just, I'm not going to be like, sure, you're going to dress up, let's go take some photos. Whatever. Yeah. Like, you're like, no. Like, when people are like, oh, what do I do? Or do I pose? I'm like, no. Like, my first question for clients whenever I work with them is not, oh, what part of the Galaxy's Edge do you want to stand in? It's, what's your character doing number 2? That's what matters to me. That it's like, yeah, cool. Who are you and why are you here? Do you live here? Are you stopping by to do some maintenance on your ship? Are you, whatever it is? That's the I guess the gravity that you should give characters and their story. That, like, that's how important it is to telling a story.
Yeah, dude, I love that. Gosh, that hits me deep as like a storyteller, because I'm just like, because you're like, oh yeah, I'm just at Disneyland and we're gonna mess around, but I love, like, if you're playing a character, why are you here? Because then it'll just like it just makes, and if you haven't been to Galaxy's Edge, for the people listening or watching, you gotta go once, and please, even if you're uncomfortable, buy a vest or put a vest on, because the experience is totally different when you're dressed up, and you get so much more money out of just the interaction with the cast and the people, because when I went on, I think my second time, I was just like, I want to know the phrases. I want to know how they greet each other, bright suns and all that, till the spire. I'm saying all that while I'm there, and people are probably like, what is this guy talking about? But I'm like, I'm there for the immersion. That's what what the park was built for, to do the role play, and they encourage it. It's not like looked down upon, or it wasn't someone else's idea. Disney's like, here are the rules for dressing up. We want you to do this, and they're providing products to do that. Like, that's why I like the little, even like the little binoculars and the little, like communicators. Like, I buy all that stuff because it's like, again, supporting something that I'm enjoying, and just that creative side that we can do that with here, at Disneyland. Because like, can't really do this anywhere else. Like, doing it at a convention, it doesn't work unless everyone's on the same page.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that's why I always laugh whenever people give, that place heat for anything. Oh, or kind of hate on it. Yeah. And I'm like, you realize that as much as maybe you don't like the way things are put together or whatever, creativity, whatever, they gave you an alien planet that you can walk around in, that exists, and it's tangible. And that's something that, like, I think every Star Wars nerd or any kid at a certain point in their life, they're like, I wish there was a place like this. I wish there was like somewhere I could go. And I think innately as humans, we, when I've met people that I work with, you start seeing more of them, even though they're not playing themselves, which is the weirdest thing, because it's almost like this, like, I'm this character in this facade. But I've met more people and got to know them deeper in a smaller span of time than I've met with people I actually know, which is crazy, because you're like, wow, this is you. This is who you are. So it's like a really kind of a organic, beautiful thing that's like, yeah, I can't even explain it. It's a trip.
Yeah, no, I mean, even to that point, just something really quick, is you were saying like, hey, I'm going outside and I'm twirling lightsabers, and you got, I'll say, quote unquote, harassed by some people outside about just lightly, right? Like lightly, just and I really meant, I was like, you're actually pretty brave, because it's something that I would feel uncomfortable doing outside, right? Like turning on my lightsaber and twirling it around, and people seeing me. There is something, I'm self-conscious about it, even though I'll like do a video podcast and put it out to more people on YouTube. It's the weirdest thing, but I wanted to commend you, because like, even in, you're like, oh, what do you think about me when when you think of my page? And of course it's the photos, but I was like, oh, it's the confidence, and then the the gravitas you bring to be like, hey, this is something I like, and I'm not afraid to show it. I think that's really rad for you to do that.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate it. It's kind of like, it's a weird superpower that I think I've had since I was a kid, that I've liked the nerdiest stuff, and every kid gets heat for like, oh, that's whack, that's nerdy. But I don't think I ever heard enough, thankfully, because I think I enjoy it so much that I could care less about what people say, because I'm like, no, dude,
100%.
It's fun. It's legitimately fun.
Yeah.
So I think if you enjoy something enough, just do it. Like, just don't even worry about it. Like, do you?
Yeah. For sure. I think too, it's just like, nerd stuff is the most popular it's ever been. Like, I think my brother-in-law used to get picked on for liking Star Wars. He's older, and it's like, you can't throw a rock without hitting a youngling that doesn't like Star Wars. Or something. They're more rare than anything. When you find people who don't enjoy something, or even Star Wars or anything nowadays, it's crazy how vast it could be, how eclectic everyone's tastes have been. But I want to ask one last question, because we're coming up right at the hour. What advice could you give to someone who wants to content create or do something like holoscans?
Honestly, I think for a long time I was in a rut creatively. Not that I'd stopped doing things.
Sure.
But I never really didn't. I never really had a groove where I was like, okay, this is it. This is the thing. because I would do something and stop and do something and stop, and naturally, like any creative person, sometimes you over critique yourself and you want the perfect thing, and then, oh no, I'm gonna put that away. Don't worry, it's not good. Like it's just part of it. It's part of what we do. You know. But I think it's so cliche to say, but like just perfect example. I heard a quote from Stan Lee that he said, the only way, basically, the only way to do your best work is by doing something that feels right to you. Don't worry about everybody else. Everyone's going to tell you other things, but as long as it feels right to you and it makes you happy, do it and you'll be fine. And I think with Holoscan is that I blended photography, storytelling, and Star Wars. The three of the coolest things that I know in my life. And I put it together, and I think as I was enjoying it, naturally, not trying to, I realized that it was working not because it worked on paper, it worked because people saw me enjoying it. And I think that's what it is that just do it, and that is going to bring people to enjoy what you like, because they can sense the authenticity to it. Oh, one second.
Darkness has this.
I know, perfect timing. So, I think that's it. Just do it. Just try it, and like you, dude. Like you're doing this.
I know, isn't it? Like, this is like it's a weird thing.
Yeah, like you're really doing this. Like I know you said you worked on stuff before, and I don't know the whole history of that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that even just in the little bit I've watched, this feels different.
Yeah.
This feels there's a lot going on, which is super cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, even when I was talking to Eli, I was like, yeah, we've done it before, but this time it feels different. It feels right, which is weird. Because again, I've done it before, but I think because it's like my thing, and like you were talking about, like it's something I genuinely enjoy, and it's authentically me, talking to people and sharing our fandoms. I think that's why it feels like a better fit. So I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. Thank you so much. And, I appreciate you taking the time to being on the pod, dude. This has been great. This is fantastic. Before I let you go, is there anything you want to plug or let people know where we can find you?
So if you want to find my Instagram, it's Holoscan Database. I also have a website, which is mostly like for inquiries, or it's a bit of a portfolio. You can find that on my Linktree, on a few other things that I have up. My next event, I'll be at the park Batu West on May 2nd. I'll be there, with a bunch of peeps, and I have a good amount of Holoscans we're going to be doing that day. I think I still have 2 spots open, so if you're interested and you're going to be there that day, hit me up, and I'll let you know what times are available. And then after that, if everything goes to plan in October, I may be dropping down to Florida for HolosCon. So we'll see.
Ooh.
I don't know. That one's still up in the air.
Yeah.
But the plan is, if everything goes well, I'll be down there, and then I'll be doing the same thing, a bunch of Holoscans and Batu East then.
Nice, dude. Yeah, you're gonna get to meet people from that side. That's gonna be really rad. Gosh.
Yeah, super cool.
I'm like, I want to meet everybody. It sounds like a fun time, and to take photos with you would be such an honor at this point. But again, thank you so much for making yourself available to be on the show. This is a blast, and I'm definitely going to have you on again, because I want to pick your brain more about Star Wars stuff and other nerd stuff. We're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, let me know. Yeah, I will make it happen.
Great. Awesome, dude. Well, I want to thank our great viewers for tuning in. Again, I'll put in the description all of the links and the link tree and our Instagrams. Please follow us there. Like, share, subscribe. And if you guys want to still see more interviews and more more content creators, please let me know in the comments, and definitely give Holoscan Database a follow. But I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and hope you have a galactic rest of your day. Punch it, Chewie. Boom! Burgundy Squad out. Bye, guys.